So please turn your cameras on, everybody, so we can get started with class. Okay, thanks so much. Try to keep them on during the class. Okay, guys. So today we're going to continue with the reading section. Last class we went through both two types of questions, right? We have seen vocabulary questions and we have finished off with detailed questions. So I know we took a lot of time there. Today we're not going to do the same thing. We're going to hurry a bit so that we can finish all the types of questions that we have. So let's start right off with the except type of question. So, all right, in this case, it's actually pretty similar to the detailed types of question, but in this case, they're not going to be asking about information that's there, information that's mentioned in the paragraph. Instead, they're going to be looking for information that's not mentioned, that's not there. It's quite easy to answer, I would say. The only thing you really need to do is compare, your paragraph and your options. And you have to think like it's a recipe, a list of things that you need to go checking one by one until you find the one that's not there. And of course, obviously, that's going to be your response. It's not so frequent. You could have either one or two per passage. So, it's okay, it's there. And we're going to see how to answer or approach this question. Okay. Okay, not this one. All right. So will anybody read by the way, we're going to continue with the same sample that we were looking at last class, the one by the ETS. So it should be pretty similar to your test. Okay, so now will anybody read the question for us, question 3?
Me, teacher.
Okay.
Okay, which of the following is not mentioned in paragraph 2 as a main factor in the development of Teotihuacan? Option A, the presence of obsidian in Teotihuacan Valley. Option B, the potential for the extensive irrigation of Teotihuacan Valley lands. Option C, a long period of volcanic inactivity in Teotihuacan Valley. And option D, Teotihuacan's location and natural trade route.
Okay, thanks so much, Jeanette. So, all right. So in this case, this question, I would say, again, it's about A, identifying your keywords, finding them in your paragraph. It's about the same thing as in the detailed question, narrowing down your information, making sure you know where the answer is. Believe me, it's usually not going to be in the entire paragraph, unless you have like a very big list of things, but that's usually not the case. And what else? And yes, I'm gonna tell you, I'm gonna give you one more tip at the end. So we actually have read this last class, but we're gonna read it again. But I think it's better if you guys read it on your own. I think you're gonna be able to understand it better. So I'll give you all like 2 minutes or maybe 1.5 to read the paragraph. Okay, try to figure out what the answer is. Okay, so you're done? Anybody has the answer?
I think it's letter C, teacher.
Okay, thanks so much, letter C. All right, do you all agree? Anybody has a different opinion? Okay, so that was quite easy, you got it. It is letter C, good choice. Now let's look at why, and mainly let's look at the things that you could have, or the mistakes that you could have done when you have this type of question. First of all, we said you find your keywords, right? Which in this case would be main factor. I think main factor in the development of Teotihuacan, because that's exactly what they're asking, right? They're asking for one thing that's not mentioned as a main factor in the development of Teotihuacan. So that's what you gotta look for in your paragraph, the first thing. So I don't know if you guys found this, but here's the keywords, right? Main factors, that's it. And yes, it's the main factors in the development of Teotihuacan because we're talking about the development of Teotihuacan. Okay. And now, my advice, whenever you have your keywords, believe me, it's almost always going to be in just one sentence. All right. It's not, as I said, it's not going to be in the entire paragraph. So we have the main factors are, and that's where our answer was going to be. And we have this list of things. Geographic location, that's one element. We have, what's this? The obsidian resources, second, and the valley's potential for extensive irrigation. And the third one, that's it. So everything you guys needed to do is, compare that to your options. So now here, be careful with the synonyms. Remember, it's not always going to be so pink. So you're not going to have something like Teotihuacan's geographic location on a natural trade route in the south and east of the Valley of Mexico. Sometimes you got synonyms, summarized information, but it's the same thing. So you have location, natural trade route here, potential for extensive irrigation, you have it here, and obsidian, you have it here. Now, the mistake that most people will make is they would read the entire thing and they would look at this, the exact role of other factors, and then they have a different list of things, right? And I think one of them is like the volcanic eruption of I don't know what. So they will be like, but I think that some volcanic thing is also mentioned there. So, and they will freak out. So be careful with that, okay? Be careful with your keywords. Make sure that you don't make the mistake of confusing them or getting mixed up. Main factors is not the same as saying other factors. And here's the tip. Be careful with quantifiers. So believe me, I've seen tons of questions or even I've made a lot of mistakes because I wasn't paying attention for these quantifiers, like main factors and other factors. It differs in quantity. The main factors are the most important ones, and the secondary factors is not the same. And I've got a lot of questions like that. Like some is not the same as saying like a few, and a few is not the same as saying many, or never is not the same as saying always. So careful with those little words that may change everything, because that's what makes this question tricky, right? So keywords, list of things, and eliminate your options, and you get to the answer. It's not really such a hard question. So well done, guys, you got it. All right, moving on to the next one, we have inference question, which it's gonna be a bit more complicated, I have to be honest. So, and the thing is that you always have 2 of them per passage. So you need to make sure you master this type of question because you have it there. Now, what they're asking for is implied information. So that is information that's not directly stated, that's not explicitly, literally said in the paragraph, but it's information that you can come to the conclusion of. So you have to use your logic, you have to reason it out, and you have to think beyond, you have to look at the bigger picture and see what you're missing. It's not gonna be there, it's not gonna be so obvious in like finding the answer. Like it's not finding the answer, but coming to the answer or getting to the answer. You need to get it to them yourself. You're the one that's gonna be doing all the reasoning. So let's see what we mean. All right. So we have this question here. Anybody can read? Anybody?
Teacher, the question,
Yeah, please. The question and the options.
what can be inferred from paragraph 3 about Squiculco prior to 200 before Christ? A, it was fairly small city until that day. B, it was located outside the Valley of Mexico. C, it emerged rapidly as an economical and political center. And D, it is economy relied heavily on agriculture.
Okay, thank you so much, Rosa. So now I'll give you all, like, again, 1.5 minutes maybe to read the paragraph and try to come to the answer, or try to think what could be the answer. Right, so let's. Okay, guys. So what do you think? How's it gonna be? Ideas? D, it's economy relied heavily on agriculture. Okay. You said D or B?
D.
D, okay. And why D?
It says in the lecture that like the volcano eruption destroy all the agricultural land in the part of Coluco. It was seriously affected in the economical and political center of Mexico. So it was really also his economy relied on heavily on agriculture. That's maybe why I think.
Okay, gotcha. All right, great. Anybody else has a different one? Or you all agree? You agree? Okay. So, well, that's good. That's actually perfect. That's right. D was the right answer. So you got it. Its economy rely heavily on agriculture. Perfectly done. So, and yes, you explained it perfectly. What I could tell you for this type of question is, yeah, always do that. It's not going to be, explicitly there. So I've, in the previous group, someone was telling me it could be B, it's located, or it was located outside the Valley of Mexico. Someone was telling me that. And when I asked why, they were like, because it says something like in and near the Valley of Mexico. So near the Valley of Mexico means outside. So it could be outside. So if you ever find yourself in that situation that you think that one option could be because it's kind of there, it's like it could be, it's there. So it's probably not going to be that one because it's not supposed to be that easy or that obvious. So it's not supposed to be there. It's supposed to be information that you're missing. It's like, if you think about it, it's like a sequence of events and you have one event that's missing. So as Alejandro explained, Cuicuilco was first. The first thing that we have here is Cuicuilco being the largest of these centers, right? A great power, something, a really good city. And then what happened? This volcanic eruption happened. The agricultural land was covered by lava, was just completely destroyed. That's the second event. And the third event that we know of is Cuicuilco being eliminated as a potential rival. So what is missing? We're missing something. Why was Cuicuilco eliminated as a potential rival? Why did they decline politically or economically? And that's what we're missing, right? Because its economy relied heavily on agriculture. So you can kind of actually add that sentence here and say, well, since its economy relied heavily on agriculture, Cuicuilco was eliminated as a potential rival and was, I don't know, basically declined, you know? So that's the information that we're missing. And that's what we can infer from the information that we have. So greatly done. What else can I tell you? Another tip that I could give you is usually it's all gonna be around the main thing. So try to summarize this paragraph, try to come up with the main idea, like what is the main thing, what is the main purpose of this paragraph. And if you think about it, the main thing here is Cuicuilco, right? And how this volcanic eruption happened and what happened with Cuicuilco and so on. So the answer is probably gonna be around that. It's usually never or hardly ever going to be about those little details, like whether it was a small city or not, or whether it was outside or in the Valley of Mexico. So it's usually going to go around the biggest thing. Okay, so look for the information that's missing, the step that you're missing. You have to read the entire paragraph. For in this case, you do. On the other one, for instance, you didn't have to read it, right? So so in the other one, for instance, you could have just identified your keywords, main factor, you got the answer, you don't need to read anything else. But in this case, being honest, you have to read the entire paragraph because sometimes you're gonna find the idea at the end. So you need to make sure you read everything and you look for that information that's missing. Okay? Any questions so far? All right, that's good. Okay, now the next one, not the final one. So we have purpose questions. Okay, so as the name suggests, they're asking for the purpose of something. In this case, it will be the purpose of either a word, a sentence, or sometimes a paragraph. Okay, what I could tell you, I don't know, one of the pieces of advice that I could give you for this question is if you have a question that's asking for the purpose of a paragraph, like what is the purpose or what is the function or the main purpose of paragraph 3. So if you have something like that, then if you decided not to read the entire passage the way that we're doing it right now, because if you think about it, we're not reading, we haven't read the entire passage itself. We're just reading paragraph by paragraph according to the question. So if you decided to do that and you have one of these questions that's asking for the purpose of a paragraph, skip that question. Leave it till the end. Choose one randomly. And when you're done with the 10 questions, you go back and try to answer it because you need a little bit, you need more context to answer it. However, if they're only asking about the purpose of a word or the purpose of a sentence or a phrase, then there's no problem. You can just answer it perfectly fine. So they're asking for the author's choices, like you were analyzing literature. So why does the author include this sentence? Or why does the author use this word? Or why does the author talk about this? You need to look for the bigger idea. We're going to see how to answer it. So let's work with this question here. All right. So who can read the question? Maybe Paola, do you mind reading?
In paragraph 6, the author discusses the thriving obsidian operation in order to A. Explain why manufacturing was the main industry of Teotihuacan. B. Give an example of an industry that took very little time to develop in Teotihuacan. Letter C. Illustrate how several factors influenced each other to make Teotihuacan a powerful and healthy city. D. Explain how a successful industry can be a source of health and source of conflict at the same time.
Okay, thank you so much. So now again, I'll give you all 1.5 minutes to read the paragraph and try to figure out what the answer is.
Teacher, I think that is D.
D. Okay, good. And why D?
Because in the paragraph explained that the main resource is obsidian, but it caused problems with another immigrants and cause like thieves, I think.
Okay, all right. So yeah, I kind of know what you mean. So yes, they're talking about the main source of wealth. And they're also talking about how they, I think, coerce people to move to basically a slavery, right? So yeah, okay, I know what you mean. Let's see. Anybody else has a different one in mind? Or you all agree with me? Okay, so I have a pretty good or useful tip here for this type of question. So one thing you can do to try to approach this question, especially when they're asking about the purpose of a word or the purpose of a sentence or a phrase, or in this case, you know, the purpose of a certain discussion. So remember, I think I said this last class, right? Remember I said, in order to know what the main idea of one paragraph is, in order to know what the paragraph is going to be about, if you want to save time, you can just read the first sentence, right? Remember that? So this actually works pretty fine. But not only is that the main idea, but also that's kind of like the argument. I don't know if you guys remember in the writing section, in the integrated writing, that you wanted to find claims and arguments, like each paragraph had an argument. So believe me, this is kind of the same thing. Each paragraph has its own argument that the author is trying to explain and trying to prove. And that's usually found in the beginning, like in the first sentence. So that is the main claim. So in this case, the author says, the picture of Teotihuacan that emerges is a classic picture of positive feedback among obsidian mining, working, trade, population growth, blah, 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 a lot of different things. So believe me when I say this, guys, usually you're going to have this thing where everything else that the author mentions is trying to support this claim or this idea at the beginning. Basically, everything that's mentioned in one paragraph is trying to support something, trying to support the main idea or the main argument in that paragraph. And that main argument is usually at the beginning, the first one. So that's one way you could think of this. Now, so like if I don't know, if the question goes, why does the author talk about the economy and who control the economy, or why does the author talk about irrigation, or I don't know, or immigration, whatever, growing population. So it doesn't really matter what, but usually the answer is in order to support this claim, to justify the main idea, to justify or to explain or to justify, yes, that the picture of Teotihuacan that emerges is a classic picture, blah, blah, blah. Now, of course, that's not going to be your options, no? You know, you're not going to have something like, in order to support the main idea. That will be too easy. So you just have to focus on finding paraphrases, like good synonyms. And another thing, try to and understand how whatever it is, like the thriving obsidian operation, supports this idea. So there are many ways in which you could support this idea. You could give examples, you could explain a bit more, you could provide evidence like facts or numbers, many ways in which you could support this idea. You just need to find out in which way the author is supporting that idea. So in this case, it's quite easy. I think it's kind of here already. Let's look at our keywords. The thriving obsidian operation, for example. So look at this connector here. That's the key, connectors again. So, okay, now I'm gonna ask you this. The thriving obsidian operation, for example, we know by hand that it's an example, right? It's an example of something. But what is the thriving obsidian operation exemplifying? Can you tell me that? What is the thriving obsidian operation exemplifying or illustrating? It's an example of what? Any ideas? Nope. Okay, so basically, it's like if I say something like this. Look at the first sentence again. If I say something like, Bolivia has a lot of talented people, and then I say something like, I don't know, Rodrigo Ramirez, for example, is a famous singer, you know? So that Rodrigo Ramirez, for example, is an example of the first thing that I'm saying, right? That Bolivia has a lot of talented people. So it's pretty much the same thing here. For example, this thriving obsidian operation is an example of the first thing that the author said, right? That the picture of Teotihuacan is a classic picture of positive feedback. That's it, and that's your answer, guys. Maybe this, for example, could be here at the beginning. You could have something like, for instance, the thriving obsidian operation would necessitate more miners and so on. So it doesn't really matter where you have that, but this connector is already telling you that the thriving obsidian operation is an example. So that is already helping you eliminate some options. For instance, I would eliminate A, explain why, because if I have why, then I would need a because, right? Something like the picture is a classic picture of positive feedback because the thriving obsidian operation, blah, 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 or because the manufacturing was, I don't know. And D, because if I say how, I would need something like by, you know, this was done by using the thriving obsidian operation or something like that. I know it's an example, so it couldn't be A or D. It could be B or C though, you know, give an example or illustrate. And once you have that, you only need to make sure that you could find a good paraphrase of this. So classic picture, positive feedback among different factors. What do you guys think the answer would be? B or C?
C. C.
C. Great, that's it, C. Because we're talking about several factors like mining, working, blah, 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 and how they influence each other to make Teotihuacan a wealthy city, or how they cooperated together, how they helped each other to create something good, you know, to make Teotihuacan a prosperous city. So, okay, let's recap. First thing, be aware that usually you have a main claim or a main idea, and that everything that's mentioned in the paragraph is supporting that main claim. Now, another thing is that you need to try to understand how that's supporting that main claim. Is it an example? Is it an explanation? Is it providing reasons? Is it, I don't know. Be aware of that relationship. And what else? Find good synonyms, like several factors influencing each other. That's a good synonym, or that's another way to say the same thing. All right. Is that okay? Any questions for that? Nope.
No, teacher.
So let's move on then. Now, the next one we got is paraphrase questions. So I personally like these questions a lot because of two things. First, they don't take that much time. You don't have to read not even the paragraph, even like let alone the passage. You just need to focus on the question, because the question is going to have everything you need to know. You don't need to go back to the passage and try to figure out the answer. It's going to be in your question. What they're asking for here is basically to paraphrase a sentence. So they give you an original sentence, like this sentence here, and they say, what is the closest option to this sentence? What is the most similar one? And that's what you need to find. Some tips I could give you is don't choose one that includes information that's not mentioned in the original sentence, nor you shouldn't choose ones that are like excluding information, that are not mentioning important things from the original one. Sometimes in your paraphrase, you're going to find that you have a different order. Maybe the subject is at the end, or maybe it's in the passive voice instead of the active one. We're going to see. It can be tricky. All right. So in this case, I didn't find an example for this type of question in this reading set. I didn't find one paraphrase question, but we're going to be looking at a different one. So, okay, I'm going to read the question. It goes, which sentence is most similar to the following sentence from paragraph 1? The theory is based on the assumptions that life developed from non-life and progressed and evolved in an indirect manner. So what you guys need to do is find the best or the most or the closest sentence to that one. You need to paraphrase that sentence and find it in one of the options. So I'll give you 1.5 minutes again to read the options and try to come up with the answer. Let's see. Okay, guys. So what do you think the answer is? Which one will you go for?
Letter A.
Letter A. Okay, good. Any other idea?
I don't know, maybe B.
B. Okay. All right. Anybody else? Okay, so the answer is actually A. So good, well done, good guess. The theory of evolution is founded on evidence that non-organic, what is this? Non-organic compounds are the basis of life built in an unguided way. Okay, D for sure wouldn't be the one. Okay, let's go eliminating options, right? And why not D? Because first of all, it doesn't contain like the main idea of the sentence, right? If we try to think of what the main idea of the sentence is, it would be what the theory is based on, right? Where the theory of evolution is based on. What is that based on? The assumptions that life develop in blah, blah, blah. So that's the main idea of the sentence. In what or on what was based the theory of evolution. And if we look at D, then, I mean, first of all, what controversy are we talking about? Due to the controversy, it's hard to make assumptions about the theory of evolution. So it doesn't contain not even a close idea to that. So it's definitely not that one. Now, option C, it is tricky. You know, I would, at the beginning, when I first read this, I was like, could be C as well, because it has some good synonyms like unguided matter, inert matter, organic compounds, non-organic compounds would be non-life. But the thing with C is that it has a different structure. You know, it's adding something that we don't have in our original sentence. Like, if we assume this, then his theory holds true. Like, how do we know? Like, how can we prove that his theory holds true if we do this? So it's a different thing. It's a different structure, and it has something that the original sentence doesn't have. So it couldn't be C either. Now, regarding B, so B is, I think it's kind of tricky because it has similar things, but it's a different thing. It has a different idea. The sentence is telling us what the theory is based on, right? The assumptions that life developed from non-life, blah, blah, blah. But B is actually telling us something completely different. It's telling us that based on those assumptions, we don't know which assumptions, by the way, we can prove that evolution occurs. So do we know where evolution occurs? Is this sentence telling us where evolution occurs? Not really, right? If we had something like the theory, it consists that evolution happens in, living and non-living entities. So it's actually not that, we don't care about where evolution occurs. That's not what the main idea of this sentence is. That's not what we need. So we have A left, which is pretty similar. Everything is like just synonyms: unguided way, indirect manner, developed, progressed, and evolved. The basis of life developed from. Non-organic compounds would be non-life, founded, based on. The only thing that makes me wonder or like makes me doubt a bit is this, the evidence. But there are ways to explain this, Basically, the evidence to found this theory was these assumptions. So it's kind of the same thing if we think this through. All right. So the biggest tip I could give you here: don't choose one that includes something extra, like C, that leaves something behind, like D, it's leaving the main idea behind, or that has a different thing, like B, because B is talking about something else. B is talking about where evolution occurs. So choose the one that is talking about the same thing and has everything in it, okay? Any questions on that? Okay, then. Now the next one, you're gonna love this question. Reference questions. So these are the easiest ones you're gonna find. Everything you need to know here is basically pronouns, what pronouns are. And pronouns are those words like I, you, he, she, it, or sometimes like these, those, that. So those are pronouns. So basically, I don't know, if we have a sentence like, I don't know, Valencia was founded maybe 200 or 2000 years ago, something like this. And then the next sentence could say something like, it was a small city until blah, 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 I don't know. So the question is going to be something like, what does it refer to? And everything you need to say is Valencia, right? You need to find the subject, the subject of the sentence. So what does it refer to? Valencia. Now, of course, they might do it, they might do some things to make it a bit harder, like Valencia, a city located in this and this and that, and give you a lot of details, but it's still gonna be the same thing. You don't have to worry about that. Maybe you don't have it, you have something like this place or this was a small city. So what does this refer to? You just have to say again, Valencia. So that's pretty much it. I'm sure you're gonna do just fine with this type of question. Let's look at an example. So, and another thing, you don't have to read the entire paragraph. It's enough if you read like the sentence where the word is, or maybe one previous sentence. If you don't find what you're looking for, you read the one before, but that's enough. So maybe Weimar, will you read the question, please?
The word those in paragraph 2 refers to gene pool, survival, natural selection, traits, and characteristics.
Okay, so now what we're gonna do is we're gonna read the sentence where the word those is, which is basically this here up until here, the period. So maybe, Melissa, would you read it?
Okay. Over time, beneficial traits and characteristics that promote survival will be kept in the gene pool, while those that harm survival will be selected against.
Okay, thanks so much. So I'm sure you got it by now. The word those refers to?
D.
I think it's A.
D.
Gene pool, you sure? D, right? Beneficial traits and characteristics. Think about it a bit more. Okay, you need to find out what those refer to. So it is D, traits and characteristics, but let's look into it. So the sentence is over time, beneficial traits and characteristics. That is the subject of the sentence, right? That is the thing that we're talking about. What are we talking about in this sentence? We're talking about beneficial traits and characteristics. And what about them? Well, the ones that promote survival, the ones, beneficial traits and characteristics that promote survival will be kept in the gene pool. So gene pool is actually the object of the sentence. It's not the subject, you know? It's like a complement, something extra. We're looking at the subject, the main thing. While those, what those? Well, the ones that harm survival or the beneficial traits and characteristics, or I'm sorry, the traits and characteristics that harm survival will be selected against. So you just need to find out what the main thing is, the thing that we're talking about, the subject of the sentence. We're not beneficial, but we're looking at traits and characteristics. So the beneficial ones will be kept, and the ones that harm survival will be selected against. So traits and characteristics, that would be the answer. Is that okay? I know I'm not explaining so much this one, but I think, is it clear? Is it okay?
Yes, I understand it. Thank you.
Okay, that's good. So we have we're now in the last question, summary questions. So it's always the last question. You're asked to summarize the main ideas of the passage, and you actually have to choose 3. They give you like 6 options, and you got to choose 3 of them to summarize the entire passage. Now, this is the thing, you know, the thing is that you need to have read the entire passage to answer this. But the good thing is, good news, is that if you think about it, like, you didn't read this, you go directly to the question. So question 1 talks about paragraph 1. So then you go back to paragraph 1, you read, and then you answer the question. Question 2, paragraph 2, you do the same thing with paragraph 2. Then question 3, maybe, or 4, paragraph 3. Then you have paragraph 4 here, and that's it. Okay? Or then you have paragraph 6 and 5. But at the end of the day, if you think about it, when you get to the last question, the summary one, I assure you guys will have read the entire thing. So when you get to the last question, the summary one, you already have in mind the whole idea. You know what the passage was about, or at least you have a general view of what the passage was about. So you're actually able to answer the question without, reading it at the beginning. So you can answer this question without reading the entire passage at the beginning. Now, what I can tell you for this, just make sure that your choices are like not so general, not so specific, actually, like they don't talk about these specific details that are not that relevant, and of course that they are related to your topic, right? It doesn't have to be something that's completely different out of topic. So we're gonna try to answer the question. We're gonna read it, and you're gonna try to tell me what your 3 options are. And we're gonna see if you can actually answer this without, even reading the whole thing. We're gonna try to test that. So here's the question. I'll give you all like 3 minutes to read the question and the options. And let's see if you can tell me what the answers could be. What do you think the answers could be? Let's see. You can read now. Okay, guys, so are you all done? Have you read the entire question in the options? Okay, so can you take a guess? Can you tell me which ones you would select? Out of these 6, you have to choose 3 of them that you think are good summaries of the entire text. So which ones would you choose?
I think C, E, and F.
Okay, C, E, and F. Okay. You all agree? What do you, anybody else has different ones in mind?
I think maybe also A, C, and E.
Okay, we're gonna break them. So A, C, and E. Okay. Anyone else? So there's only one way to figure out, right? We're gonna mark this. So great, the answers were actually A, C, and E. You got it, Manes. And well, you weren't so wrong either, because the only one that was wrong, we would say, is F. So you had good guesses, that's great. Now, if we analyze this, if we think about it, A, C, and E, the three of them are the general ones, you know? If we look at F, so why is not F? So first of all, what was the passage about? Can you tell me in general terms what the passage was about? And you have a hint, it's in the title. So what was the passage about? Basically, you know, if we remember the title, it was The Rise of Teotihuacan. So that's what the passage was about, the development of Teotihuacan, how that city developed, how, why, or what factors influenced the development of the city, or when maybe, but that's it, you know, it's an explanation of how the city developed. That's what we need. Now, F is too specific to be the one. F is only talking about the immigrant part, you know, although many immigrants settled in Teotihuacan between, we have a specific date between AD 150 and 700. We have the increasing threat of coerced labor, discouraged further settlement of limited Teotihuacan's population growth. So option F is too specific, believe me, to be the one. It talks about immigrants, about population growth. It has a specific date in it. So that's maybe mentioned, you know. I'm not saying that that wasn't mentioned in the paragraph, in the passage. It was probably there, but that's not the main idea, you know what I mean? It's just one of the ideas that's presented to support the main idea, but that's not it. If we look at A, C, and E though, look at A, the number and sophistication of the architectural, administrative, commercial, and religious features of Teotihuacan. So you look at how A is mentioning not only just one thing, you know, it's not only focusing on the architecture, on the administration, or the commerce, or religion. It's focusing on all of them, like different factors or different features of Teotihuacan, indicate the existence of centralized planning and control, which means that it was a very, you know, like a very powerful city. It was a very organized city. And that's a general thing, you know, that's a general thing to say. It's not specific at all. It's not talking, as I said, about one of these factors. It's mentioning all of them, and it's mentioning how the city was organized. That's it. If we look at C, the same thing. Look at this. Several factors may account for Teotihuacan's extraordinary development. Good. Including its location, natural resources, irrigation, intelligent elite, and the misfortune of rival communities. So again, you see how they're mentioning several factors, and they're mentioning just one of, like, just a few of them, including, but not excluding, you know what I mean? So basically, again, C is a very broad one. Like, it's talking about the extraordinary development of Teotihuacan and why it was like that, you know, because of several factors, like, or such as, and we have some of them. But again, it's not just about one thing. It's not just about the elite or the irrigation potential. No, it's about the whole thing as a whole, you know? And finally, E, the same thing. In many important areas, from the obsidian industry to religious tourism, Teotihuacan's success and prosperity typify the quasi-positive feedback cycle. Again, you see how this is so broad? Many important areas, from the obsidian industry to religious tourism. So this from to means that you have a lot of other things in the middle, right? From the obsidian industry to religious tourism, but there are a lot of other things in the middle of that. And again, we're talking about the prosperity, we're talking about the prosperity of this city. So it's, again, very broad. That's what you need. If we look at B though, Teotihuacan may have developed its own specific local religion as a result of cultural advances made possible by the city's great prosperity. So was that really the main thing? Was religion, Teotihuacan's religion, the main topic? No, right? It was Teotihuacan's development, not the religion. So this is just one little thing that we don't care about. And the same goes for D. As a result of its large number of religious shrines, by the first century AD, Teotihuacan became the most influential religious center in all Mesoamerica. Again, religion. That's not the main idea, you know? So the best tip I could give you here is just focus on the ones that go with the main idea, the biggest thing, you know? It's not about the details. Whenever you have a specific dates, a specific factors, specific things mentioned, that's not the one, you know, even if that was mentioned in the past. Just by reading the title, you could answer this. Is that okay? Any questions? Any questions before we go? All right, guys. So then please start today's survey. And so would you please answer those 3 questions for me before you leave? Okay, so I think someone's missing. I don't know who that could be. All right, now I got it. Okay, guys, so thank you so much. I'll see you all next week. Hope you have a nice weekend and a nice evening too.
Thanks, Miss. You too.
you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye, teacher.
Bye, guys. Take care.
Bye, teacher.
Bye-bye.